As things start to reopen, it's important to recognize that on the other side of the pandemic, there are going to be a host of people who end up unfortunately becoming ultimately the victims of an economy that has changed very rapidly and that is going to continue to change rapidly as competition becomes fierce for every dollar and the economy struggles to rise up again. And business owners, what they're doing is they're looking for ways that they can automate. They're looking at ways to leverage machine learning. And ultimately, we're entering this phase of the future of work where things look very, very different. And as an individual, you need to ask yourself, what are you going to do to bring your fair market value to the industries that you're supporting? And what I mean by that is, are you at risk of your job being automated in some capacity? Are you at risk of an algorithm or a series of servers and computers being arranged and configured in a way where you're ultimately redundant? And I know that's a harsh way of putting it, but that is the reality of what we're about to experience over the next 2 to 3 years. And I think it's important to recognize that now so that you don't end up being a loser on the other side of this. So what can you do now to make sure that you're set up for success in 2 to 3 years from now? So some of the things that I've recognized or I've seen others and theorists come up with is a few things. The first, of course, is making sure that you're improving your skills. So this could be through training, learning online courses, making sure that you're just upping your game so that that role that exists now is still, it's for you is there in some fashion. So as we've seen, cashiers have turned into self-checkouts, right? A lot of phone type industries have become automated as well. So I mean, all this to say is that take a good hard look at your industry and understand where you fall on that spectrum of industries and segments of the population or jobs that are essentially going to be disrupted by technology in some capacity. There are a lot of resources out there, so you can probably do a few Google searches to understand how impacted your industry will be as a result of the changes that are occurring. Secondly, I would also recommend understanding that the idea of a traditional job is not going to exist anymore, right? So there's this, you've probably heard the buzz term, the gig economy. That really is going to be expedited very quickly. And what that looks like is essentially business owners mitigating their risk by not actually hiring employees and bringing in outsourced contractors to do essentially the same work. One of our value propositions for our company, and I don't mean this to be a sales pitch by any means, but one of our value propositions is this idea that we come in as a turnkey marketing department for your team. Marketing, as everyone knows, is a big risk, and so what we can do for a company is mitigate that risk by coming in and if 3 months, 6 months, a year from now it doesn't work, well, I can shake your hands. It was nice working with you. I mean, ultimately, we're going to do everything in our power, and we have brought tremendous value to many, many companies. But ultimately, it mitigates that risk, and it avoids, some of those hard costs associated to it. So think about how your industry may evolve based on the gig economy, and what type of outsourced tasks or functions a business might need that you're currently doing that you could productize and turn into an offering that you can, really start selling to businesses if you have either been laid off or if you're an entrepreneur. And I think really on the other side of it, if you do those two things, which is upping your skills and understanding that there's probably more risk in continuing to look for a job versus creating your own product and selling it to businesses, if you recognize those two things, I think on the other side of this, you'll probably come out way better than you would have if you just kind of stuck to the same old, played the victim and was like, woe is me, and kind of went about your business thinking that everything's going to be normal on the other side of this. So reach out if you have any questions. I'd be happy to kind of jump on a call with you to discuss kind of your future in terms of what your career looks like, and hopefully these were some tips that could help you think about the next stages as we get back into reopening the economy.